very good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us for this edition of Channel 1 News Hour. It has been a very busy day in the country. A record mass in Nairobi and Devolution conference in Kakamega. This details after the highlights.
He was fearless in his vision for himself and for his family, but also for his friends and certainly for his nation.
Democracy icon the late Kenneth Matiba eulogized as a true patriot ahead of his burial on Friday.
My proposal is that we adopt a three-tier system that retains the current counties, creates regional or provincial governments, and retains the national government with a very clear formula for revenue sharing.
To amend or not to amend, opposition leader Raila Odinga proposes adoption of a three-tier government. And property worth millions of shillings destroyed after students of St. Paul's Amukura Secondary School go on rampage.
Once again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. My name is Edward Kabasa. Our sign language interpreter is Susan Thuku. President Uhuru Kenyatta led mourners in paying glowing tribute to the late politician Kenneth Stanley Njindo Matiba at his requiem service held at the All Saints Cathedral in Nairobi. Family, friends and acquaintances described the democracy icon as a selfless leader who dedicated his time, resources and life for the sake of the country. The late Matiba is survived by a widow, Edith, and 5 children.
All Saints Cathedral, Nairobi, today hosted family, friends and dignitaries as they celebrated the life and times of prominent politician and businessman Kenneth Stanley Njindo Matiba, who passed away on the 15th of this month after long illness. President Uhuru Kenyatta led mourners in paying homage to the late Matiba, acknowledging his immense contribution to Kenya's struggle for multi-party democracy and economy of the country.
He epitomized what Kenya is supposed to be. A man committed to hard work, first and foremost. A man who was caring and considerate of others. A man who was willing to sacrifice, the word sacrifice, to make life better for others.
Kenneth Matiba, who in a very special way made huge personal sacrifices as a father, as a husband, and more so as a Kenyan.
There is a lesson to be learned here, especially us who are leaders. What will we be remembered for? What will we be remembered for? Are we ready to sacrifice in order to ensure that we leave Kenya a better place than we found it?
His family sharing memories of a loving father, friend and role model who was selfless in nature.
And Dad was fearless in his relationships with people. He was not afraid at all of showing love and concern, of going the extra mile every time. He was not afraid of spending all his time and all his energy and every other resource that came his way to make another life better.
Speaker after speaker reminisced on the time spent in the company of the late Matiba.
Had a discussion with Ken between Loitokitok and Nairobi, and Ken told me that although I had a career in the army, He felt that the army was restrictive. It would not give me an opportunity to serve the nation in other fields.
Tomorrow, the cortege heads to Murang'a for the second Requiem service at Ihura Stadium.
To Kakamega now, where former Prime Minister and Opposition Chief Raila Odinga is proposing a three-tier government that will see current devolution units maintained but clustered in 12 regional blocks. While delivering his address at the ongoing devolution conference, Raila said the current arrangement is not attractive to investors who argue that Raila said that the current arrangement is not attractive to investors who look at size of the market as a basis of investment. Achola Simon with that report.
It has been a matter of debate to amend or not to amend the Constitution, barely 8 years after it was effected. Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga reigniting the debate, arguing that as currently constituted, the current devolved units are not attractive to large-scale investors. Speaking as he gave his keynote address to the 5th Devolution Conference in Kakamega County, Raila said the three-tier government structure should be based on the 12 administrative blocks proposed by the Bomas draft.
The Bomas draft constitution divided Kenya into 14 regions, each made up of several districts or counties. The intent was to create units with a size and population that made them economically viable. It is time to look at how to recover this original spirit.
The opposition chief calling for a good working relationship amongst key stakeholders in the devolved structure of governance.
You are one of the most critical stakeholders in the future of our country. I wish to invite all of you to support and take steps to the realization of the building bridges to the new Kenyan Nation initiative contained in the MOU we signed with President Uhuru Kenyatta.
As we move to the second phase of devolution, we expect a lot of improvements. We expect a lot of working together. We had a lot of acrimony in the first phase, but we decided as a council that we have to change that.
His call coming in the wake of rising tensions between governors and senators over the proposed introduction of ward funds to be managed by the MCAs.
That devolution is working. And as a Senate, I can assure you that this is a pro-devolution Senate. The challenges that we had in our last session with the governors and the rest of the people is now history.
And indeed, I reached out to my brother, Right Honorable, the Speaker of the Senate, at the very instance when he was elected by the senators, and said, we've got to provide a new kind of leadership.
A day after President Uhuru Kenyatta officially opened the 5th Devolution Conference, the conference broke into sectorial committees that have proposed a raft of changes to ensure the government achieves the Big Four agenda. The sectorial committees proposed employment of ICT and data in the health sector to enable the government understand the scope of various ailments as well as personnel and medical supplies. They also want a thorough audit of legislations in the manufacturing sector as a way of hastening and attracting investors as a means of increasing value for farm produce. They also want increased public participation as a way of increasing accountability.
The World Health Organization is now raising the alarm over stalled progress of campaigns to eradicate malaria. In a report released to mark World Malaria Day, WHO cited insufficient funding at both domestic and international levels as the cause of low provision of insecticide-treated nets, medicines and other life-saving tools as key impediment in the fight against malaria. And as Lines Mwashigadi reports, despite a drop in the malaria prevalence rate from 11 to 8%, the Lake region is still recording high cases of infections and malaria-related deaths.
April 25th annually is World Malaria Day. In Kenya, the Lake region counties in the coast region are the most affected by malaria. National celebrations to mark the day were held in KBC County, one of the endemic regions in the country. In Migori County, the malaria prevalence rate stands at 27%. In addition, malaria in pregnancy remains the main cause of maternal and child deaths in the county, according to the County Director of Maternal and Child Survival Program, Cornelius Kondo.
In Kenya, about 70% of the population is at risk of infection, with pregnant women and children under 5 being the most vulnerable group.
Despite all these measures and notable successes, challenges still remain in some sub-counties neighboring the lake endemic areas like Kenya-Cuba and Migori counties, where malaria prevalence is as high as 27%.
The World Health Organization is raising the red flag over stalled progress in the global fight against malaria. According to the World Malaria Report 2017 released to mark World Malaria Day, an estimated 5 million more malaria cases were recorded in 2016 than in 2015, with about 445,000 people succumbing to the disease. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom regretted that insufficient funding at both domestic and international levels are key impediments in the fight against malaria. 15 countries, all but one in sub-Saharan Africa, carry 80% of the global malaria burden, with Kenya standing at number 15. WHO is now calling for a 40% reduction of malaria cases and death rates in 91 countries where transmission remains a reef. Lines Mwashigadi for Channel 1 News.
Property worth millions of shillings went up in flames after students of St. Paul's Amukura Secondary School in Busia County went on a rampage in a moment of raid that left 6 dormitories and the food store destroyed. The students returned to school 2 weeks ago to write their end-of-term examinations after they snubbed the exercise at the end of last term.
The students had returned back to school following consultations between teachers, the School Board of Management and the Teachers Service Commission. But it appears that the students resolved to have the school principal transferred, the school acquire a big television set, provide good food and nice kitchen utensils, remained strong even after they were given a chance to sit for their end-of-year examinations, days after they went on rampage at the end of March. The early morning drama saw property worth millions of shillings destroyed. Busia County Commissioner Michael Tialal, who visited the school alongside other government officials, warned the neighboring community against inciting students.
Kuna watu ambao wako nje ya shule hii ambayo pia wanahusika kwa kuchochea wanafunzi waharibu shule. Na ndiye tungewaonya hawa, kwa sababu wale wanafanya hivi ni wazazi pia. Lakini wanataka kuharibu watu ambao wako nje, ambao wameshirikiana pamoja nao ili wachome shule hii. Na kama wako hapa na kama hawako hapa, na wasikie ya kwamba pia ni laana na pia tunachunguza.
The commissioner saying that stern action will be taken against the perpetrators of the strike.
Tutachunguza, tutawatafuta wale ambao wote wamehusika. Na kwa sasa hatuwezi kusema kwamba ni wadogo. Tutawachukulia hatua ya kisheria. Watafungwa na watapata kile ambacho hawakunuia ya kwamba itapatikana kwao.
The school has been closed indefinitely as investigations into the incident begins. For Channel 1 News Hour, I'm Emily K. Bade.
And to some encouraging news now, Health Cabinet Secretary Cecily Kariuki and her Cuban counterpart will tomorrow put pen to paper on a deal that will see 100 medical specialists from Cuba come to Kenya. The deal will also see 50 Kenyan doctors leave for Cuba for training. The deal that was struck during President Kenyatta's visit to Cuba will see Kenya work with Cuba on research projects, develop training for primary healthcare workers, and collaborate to train specialists in genetic engineering and biotechnology.
Hello viewers, this is it, and this is Havana, Cuba at night. Of course, there's a 7-hour difference between Nairobi and Havana, the capital of this country called Cuba in Latin America. But then again, the biggest news today, of course, like we've been telling you, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Cecily Kariuki, has been in Cuba, of course, leading a high-power delegation to Cuba on a benchmarking tour, but also to attend a health conference convened by the Cuban government. But the biggest news as it is, when the president was here in the month of March, there was a deal that was signed that would allow 100 specialist doctors from Cuba to come to Kenya to spruce up the number of doctors in Kenya, but most importantly, provide specialist services, the missing gaps or the missing link in the Kenyan healthcare system, and that will happen. The good news is by June or the end of June, the doctors should be arriving in the country. The signing of this particular deal or the final details of this deal will be signed tomorrow here by the Cabinet Secretary Cecily Kariuki and her counterpart from the Cuban government. There will be 100 doctors, but of course this will also allow 50 doctors from Kenya to come to Cuba for training on this very same issues in terms of being specialist doctors, because as you well know, there is a shortage of doctors when it comes to the field of dermatology as well as neurology and other areas of surgery, and the doctors will be coming to spruce up the numbers. And here is the Cabinet Secretary of Health on this matter.
We do not have sufficient specialized doctors across the country, but even where we have a skill set that is required to go to the far-flung areas, we also have cases of human resource being asked to serve in the far-flung areas, but not willingly going to serve in those places. And so the specialized doctors who we are bringing today is really a drop in the ocean of what we may require. But as a starting point, we'll invest in it, but we'll invest in it with the aim of using them to train and capacity build and also mentor our own doctors.
One would ask, since there is opposition from the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union on the aspect of engaging Cuban doctors, what would be the position of county governors, bearing in mind that they're also a critical player since health is a devolved function? Here is Governor Mohamed Kuti of Isiolo, the chairperson of the subcommittee on health at the Governor's Summit.
I want this to be taken in a very, very sober way, because Cuban doctors are not coming to replace Kenyan doctors. We will always need Kenyan doctors. We will continue training the Kenyan doctors. We will continue strengthening our local capacity. We are not going to replace anybody. But we have to also accept our situation, number one, of the national doctor-patient ratio. We have also to appreciate the fact that certain counties lack specialties.
But of course, the other benefit that Kenya is likely to reap from this tour by the Cabinet Secretary to Cuba is on the eradication of malaria. You well know that Cuba was able to eradicate malaria in 1960, and the vector control is one of the deals signed by the Cabinet Secretary this morning, as well as on the areas of cooperation in agriculture, increasing sugarcane production, as well as the provision of biofertilizers and biopesticides. And the deal was signed today by the Cabinet Secretary for Health, Cecily Kariuki, of course, on some bits on behalf of the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Mwangi Kiunjori. That's it for now, but of course we'll keep updating you on the happenings here in Cuba. My name is John Jacob Curia.
Thank you very much, JJ, for that report, and of course, JJ giving us some pictures from Cuba, including that car which you just saw. The Pan-African Conference on Education officially kicked off today amid calls for African nations to integrate science, innovation, and technology in the education curriculum. Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed says the development will ensure that respective nations align their policies with the continent's strategic development plan.
Inspired by the need to revamp the education sector in the continent, various stakeholders, among them over 40 ministers of education from the region, converged for the high-level Pan-African Conference on Education to take stock on the progress made in aligning national plans to the Sustainable Development Goals 2030.
The aim of this education strategy is to reorient African education and training systems to make the knowledge, competency, skills, and creativity required to nurture the core African values and promote sustainable development at the national, sub-regional, and continental levels.
The development coming at a time when Kenya is revising her education curriculum to meet the demands of the 21st century. According to African Union Commissioner for Human Resources, Science and Technology, Professor Sarah Anyang, there is need for African states to embrace science and technology in an effort to expand local expertise in line with the Continental Strategy for Education in Africa 2016-2025, CISA.
We cannot talk about health, entrepreneurship, employment, etc. without education. And the skilled and competent citizens that we need for the Africa we want, it is only by education. And what kind of education? Quality education and the right kind of education, because the world is going technological. So we are insisting on the importance of CESA 2016-2025. CESA is the science, technology, innovation strategy for Africa.
These amid calls for African governments to develop progressive policies that ensure access to quality education for the citizenry.
To ensure a comprehensive outcome is building a conducive environment for education transformation in Africa, promoting good governance, leadership, and accountability in education management.
The race is between progress and disaster. The responsibility is huge. The expectations are many. I know that we can rise to the occasion as Africans and educate our youth.
The three-day conference is organized by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, the Kenyan government in collaboration with the African Union. Rose Gakwa for Channel 1 News Hour.
20 minutes past 9, a quick break here. Don't go too far. We still have plenty more lined up for you, including business and sports.
The Easy Banking app is your bank anywhere, anytime. Everything you do at the bank is on Easy Banking app. You can use the app to send money, pay bills, buy and pay for goods and services, access easy loans, check the status of your account, save for future goals, and so much more. And now you can enjoy an even better banking experience with the just updated Easy Banking app. Loaded with a great suite of powerful features, so you're always in control of your banking lifestyle wherever you are. Download the Easy Banking app from Google Play Store or App Store and link your Equity Bank account. If you do not have an Equity Bank account, open one hapo from the app. Easy Banking. Experience convenience in life.
Je, waweza fanya nini kwa dakika 4? Na mega dola. Unaweza piga chef? Na mega dola. Kila kitu ni mega. Waweza pika ugali? Na mega dola. Pesa hapa ni mega. Na mega. Labda waweza fua nguo? Ni mega. Na mega dola. Ama unaweza tengeneza milioni 30. 4 minutes are enough to win big with Mega Dollar. Just go to Lipa na M-Pesa, select Pay Bill, enter business number 295888, enter account name KBC, deposit 10 shillings or more, enter your PIN and press OK, then choose 10 numbers from 1 to 80 and send to 29588. And you can win up to 30 million shillings every 4 minutes. Deposit, play, and win with Mega Dollar. The big game for big winners.
The primate sanctuary makes room for one more victim of the illegal bushmeat trade.
From about age 3, he was kept in a small cage, about 1 meter cube.
Will this battered and abused chimp survive the transition to his new home? And it may look more like a skunk than a monkey, but it's set to make its return to Old Pejada.
So it's just one little step to bringing back what used to be here.
Now, Batian and his team pin their hopes for bringing them back on just 3 monkeys.
Very stressed, having just been brought in.
It's just another busy week in the life of a Kenyan game reserve.
This Thursday on Road to Success. If you truly believe in something or a business idea, you know yourself best and listen to yourself, and you follow your dream. You know it better, you can execute it better.
I think that's what ultimately makes an amazing entrepreneur, is just that drive to be able to do it at all costs, and yeah, just keep pushing when it's hard, because it's hard being an entrepreneur.
Road to Success.
Welcome back to the program. 3 IEBC commissioners who recently announced their resignation from the electoral body could be forced to surrender all public assets in their possession, as well as formally tender in their resignations to either the president or the commission. In a case filed in court, activist Okia Omtata argues that the commission, Vice Chair Consolata Maina, Commissioners Paul Krugat and Margaret Mochanya are still receiving salaries and benefits, making it impossible to commence the process of replacing them. Ben Chumba with that report.
In a case filed under certificate of urgency before the High Court, 3 IEBC commissioners who resigned from the commission last week have been sued for violating provisions of the Constitution through their continued earning of salaries while not reporting on duty. In the petition, activist Okia Omtata wants the court to prohibit IEBC from processing any pay or advance any benefits to the Commission's Vice Chairperson Consolata Maina, Commissioners Paul Kurgat and Margaret Mochanya, after failing to follow up their announcement by formally tendering their resignation. Omtata claims that failure by the 3 officials to formally resign from office and hand over public assets to IEBC have made it impossible for authorities to announce vacancies in their offices and to commence the process of recruiting and appointing their replacements. Omtata wants the court to force them to vacate office and to surrender all public assets advanced to them by the Commission and other state organs while in their positions as commissioners, including motor vehicles and security personnel. The 3 commissioners announced their resignation last week, citing lack of proper leadership by electoral body chair Wafula Chebukati. Ben Chumba reporting for Scales of Justice.
The National Police Service has incorporated counter-terrorism and violent extremism in its training curriculum. Speaking during the International Conference on Terrorism and Violent Extremism, Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet said the move will equip security agents with necessary skills to deal with the changing face of terrorism. Ron Cliff Odette has that story for us.
On Day 2 of the International Conference on Terrorism and Violent Extremism, organized by the Horn International Institute in Nairobi. The chief guest, Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet, among the speakers, as he sought to shed light on what the government is doing to tackle the changing face of terrorism and violent extremism. Boynet says training security agents on changing dynamics of terror remains the most effective strategy in fighting the global threat.
And to that extent, we have introduced a new curriculum in our training institutions in which counter-terrorism and counter-violent extremism forms one of the most important modules of instruction, modules that are instructed in our institutions.
The IG adding that the government has acquired modern technological equipment that have played a key role in keeping terror elements at bay.
We have also modernized the equipment that we use in this fight. That also includes much more specialized training of our officers, or to equip them with the requisite skills to fight counter-terrorism.
Participants in the conference are looking at modern ways of tackling the global phenomenon. The forum, organized by the Horn International Institute, comes to a close on Thursday. Reporting for Channel 1 News Hour, I'm Roncliffe. OD.
Attempts by legislators drawn from Turkana County to secure 20% share of oil revenue were dealt a blow after Majority Leader Eden Duale moved to postpone debate on the Petroleum bill. Turkana South MP James Lomanen had managed to move an amendment in the bill repealing provisions limiting Turkana's share of oil revenue, only for the Majority Leader to initiate postponement debate. The decision to push the enactment of Petroleum bill elicited heated exchange between MPs drawn from northern Kenya and the House leadership.
Order! Order! Order, member! Order, member! Order, Honorable Rominen!
Drama unfolded in the National Assembly after Majority Leader Aden Duale moved to push enactment of Petroleum bill to allow room for consultations on proposed amendments. Duale's move coming after Committee of the Whole House had adopted amendments by Turkana South MP James Lomanen and Endebess MP Robert Pokose that repealed proposed capping on Turkana's share of oil revenue.
Any member can stand on his feet from where he sits and ask the Committee of All House to report progress. And I have given the reasons that the chair, as the move of this bill, the chair, vice chair, was moving new clauses.
Who wants the report? It is the House that the House is on the process. We are procedure. We are doing all that we are supposed to do. Why are you stopping? We are here. Time is not yet. Madam Speaker, we have not actually. We are not yet convinced. And I can't even say maybe there are people who have interest for this bill, and they want to sneak on their own interest.
Honorable Speaker, we have nothing under the table. It's Honorable Lomanen who has something under the table, in as far as this bill is concerned. And we want him to declare his interest.
A number of those amendments are just coming in now. Others are being introduced. And it will be unfair on the people of Kenya that only a handful of us sitting here this afternoon will make a bill that has fundamental implications on the future of Kenya, has fundamental implications on monetary implications.
According to the Petroleum bill currently in Parliament, the national government will get 75%, while Turkana County and the community will share the remaining 25%. Turkana MPs have expressed their reservations on a proviso that caps the 25% against county allocation share of that given year.
The interest I have in this House is the interest of the people represented who brought me into this House. And I think that is the interest every member of Parliament has here. I have said that is very important as far as the place I represent is concerned. So, as the leader of majority says, he has powers. He has no powers to oppress the poor. He has no powers to deny the people I represent their chance.
And then from nowhere, the leader of majority, out of vested interest, okay, because this is a very weighty issue, and as leaders of pastoralists, as leaders from these regions, unfortunately, the one happens to be one. We are watching.
And you know, I'm the patron of the pastoral parliamentary group. I cannot throw you guys under the bus. But the law we are going to make, Mr. Speaker, is not going to affect only Turkana.
The Committee of the Whole House is expected to conclude with the Petroleum bill tomorrow. Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
Residents of Garissa County have been advised to move to higher grounds in anticipation of floods as heavy rains continue to wreak havoc across the country. County Commissioner Joshua Chepcheng said an alert has already been sent by Kengen advising all those living along the riparian land on Tana River to relocate. Details of this and other stories in news-making headlines across the counties.
As Kenyans continue to count losses as heavy rains and flash floods continue to take their toll, residents of Garissa have been advised to move to higher grounds. Have been submerged in water following Kengen's move to release huge volumes of water from their Seven Fork reservoirs. The Meteorological Department forecast sustained rains Wednesday, with rains expected to continue over the Lake Victoria Basin highlands west of the Rift Valley, the Central and South Rift Valley, Central Highlands, and the Coast region. Meanwhile, First Lady Margaret Kenyatta has received a donation of 100 special wheelchairs from the Giants Group of Nairobi. The donation brings to 240 the number of mobility carts the Beyond Zero initiative has received since last month, when the First Lady began implementing the second strategic plan for her Beyond Zero initiative. United Nations High Commission for Refugees has attributed the increased numbers of stateless persons to weak legal national laws and ignorance from affected countries. United Nations High Commission for Refugees Deputy Representative to Kenya, Walpaga Elgebrecht, said stateless people have been suffering following failure by their respective governments to recognize them or amend the law.
Our main focus is clearly working with the governments in order to reduce statelessness, and actually by the end of 2024 to eradicate statelessness.
And police in Narok are holding 5 suspects in connection with mobile money transfer fraud. The suspects were arrested at the quarry in the area, posing as Safaricom customer care agents. Narok County Commissioner George Natembea says the 5 have been conning unsuspecting Kenyans by calling and asking them for their M-Pesa details.
Kuna lot of dishonesty kwa upande wa employees wa Safaricom, and the company needs to come out very firmly, because Kenyans are losing billions of shillings kupitia kwa njia ya fraud.
Elsewhere, a group of civil society organizations in Nairobi have called for urgent, comprehensive reforms in the joint United Nations program on HIV and AIDS. The calls follows alleged mishandling of a sexual harassment allegation scandal that has threatened the credibility of the Global AIDS Agency.
In addition to creating an enabling environment, we also demand that systems are put in place to ensure better and quicker handling of sexual harassment processes.
Finally, Koto Secretary General Francis Atwoli has faulted proposed amendments to labor laws. Atwoli says the amendments will only act to obstruct the labor movement.
Any amendments in 2018 miscellaneous amendments are illegal, are unconstitutional, and we stand to fight them, and I'm sure we will get it. If we can't get it in High Court, in Labor Relations Court, we will get it in Court of Appeal.
And with that, we take a short break, but don't go too far. Business News is up next.
Nilikuwa nina watch show, alafu kuna ile namba special 10 zilipeanwa pale, alafu baadaye nikatangazwa kuwa mimi ndio mshindi. Naso laba mtaani niko na kioski yangu pale, yenye nimeshinda nda boost ile kioski yangu iko kubwa kidogo, na wasi mcheze. $1 ni ya ukweli.
Nawe pia cheza ushinde leo. Top up kwa paybill number 295888 uanzie sasa.
The primate sanctuary makes room for one more victim of the illegal bushmeat trade.
From about age 3, he was kept in a small cage, about 1 meter cube.
Will this battered and abused chimp survive the transition to his new home? And it may look more like a skunk than a monkey, but it's set to make its return to Old Pejida.
So it's just one little step to bringing back what used to be here.
Now, Batian and his team pin their hopes for bringing them back on just 3 monkeys.
Very stressed, having just been brought in.
It's just another busy week in the life of a Kenyan game reserve.
This Thursday on Road to Success. If you truly believe in something or a business idea, you know yourself best and listen to yourself, and you follow your dream. You know it better, you can execute it better.
I think that's what ultimately makes an amazing entrepreneur, is just that drive to be able to do it at all costs, and yeah, just keep keep pushing when it's hard, because it's hard being an entrepreneur.
Road to success.
Welcome back. Time for business. Economic growth slowed last year, suppressed by violent elections, drought and slow credit growth to the private sector. According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the gross domestic product increased 49.4.9%, down from 5.85% in 2016. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich says growth momentum will peak in 2018, with the economy growing by 5.8%.
The 2018 economic report shows that growth in the financial services sector slowed to 3.1%, blamed on the interest rate capping law, which came into force in the last quarter of 2016. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich says the National Treasury has drafted new proposals to the National Assembly to change the law.
We are going to engage, of course, Parliament. We are developing sort of a legal framework which will address the management of credit in the economy. It's not only issues of the cost of credit, it's also the issues of consumer protection issues, the way the market conduct is also a challenge.
Thanks to an elongated electioneering period, investment in the manufacturing sector slowed down as investors were rattled by the elevated political noise. The 2018 economic report indicates that output was sluggish in 2017 at 0.2% from 2.7% in the previous year, while construction decelerated to 8.6% from 9.8% in 2016 as investors adopted a wait-and-see mode.
If we look at comparatively, during the electioneering period, there is normally a slowdown in the performance of some of the keys, particularly the manufacturing sector.
The agricultural sector expanded by 1.6% due to the dry spell that country experienced in the first and second quarter of 2017. However, the sector is expected to register improved growth this year due to favorable weather. Tourism was a bright spot after growing almost 15%, the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics says. The sector's earning increased 20% to 120 billion shillings, with the number of visitors increasing by 8.1% to 1.5 million visitors in 2017. Total cargo handled through the port of Mombasa increased by 10.6% to 30 million tons in 2017. In the year under focus, the economy created 900,000 jobs, with more than 80% of these jobs in the informal sector.
We did not have the right inputs which would have been used by the manufacturing sector to do value addition. So there's a component that is a knock-on effect. Bad weather, agriculture, then leading to manufacturing not doing well.
The government expects the economic activity to pick up this year, pushing growth to an estimated 5.8% and 7.0% in the next 3 to 5 years. O'Brien Kiman for Business News Hour.
Kenya and Tanzania are planning to increase investments in agriculture value addition as well as manufacturing to enhance bilateral trade relations. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kunjuri says Kenya will leverage on cordial relations with Tanzania to promote investments under the Big Four plan.
In February 2018, there was concerted effort by both the Tanzanian and Kenyan governments to stave off a brewing trade war between the two, with consensus reached by senior government officials from the two East African countries. 3 months down the line, the endeavor seems to be paying off after the first ever Made in Tanzania exhibition opened its doors in Nairobi.
Strategically organized to promote, pursue greater market opportunities for Tanzania industrial product and tourism potentials in Kenya and beyond.
Kenya seeks to leverage on these cordial relations to drive the Big Four agenda.
The realization of the Kenyan Big Four will be driven not only by producing effective agriculture products for our country consumption, but also our ability to feed the manufacturing sector in order to be competitive players in the region and beyond.
Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kinjori says trade volumes are bound to increase between the two countries by the windfall from investments, especially in the agriculture and manufacturing sectors. According to the 2017 Economic Survey data, trade between Kenya and Tanzania constitutes over 45% of the entire trade within the East African community.
We have more trade barriers within our own communities than we have for other international markets. So those are the questions that we must ask ourselves. And by the end of the day, it is what we shall be remembered for what we do today that can be seen tomorrow.
Members of the EAC have been challenged to adopt inclusive policies to increase the trading bloc's competitiveness globally. The expo has attracted Tanzanian-based companies from the oil and gas industry, agrochemistry, tourism and hospitality, among others.
So our objective for coming in Kenya is to expand the AgroZ range of products which are dedicated to horticulture and agriculture.
Regina Manyara-Gitao reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Kenya will start transporting crude oil via road from Turkana to the port of Mombasa in the coming months under the Early Oil Pilot Scheme program. Talo Oil says the oil produced is initially being stored until the necessary consents and approvals are granted.
Kenya has been looking forward to join the League of Crude Oil Exporters with the discovery of oil at the Lokichar Basin in Turkana County. This has, however, delayed due to many reasons, including security concerns, environmental concerns, and logistical challenges. Talo Oil says tracking of crude oil from Lokichar to the port of Mombasa will commence in coming months. Talo Oil says, and I quote, discussions between local and national government are ongoing with expectations of being able to commence the tracking of oil in coming months. End of quote. For now, oil produced is being stored until all necessary consents and approvals are granted for the transfer of the crude oil to Mombasa by road. Talo Oil says they have been conducting tests on how the oil will behave in different temperatures when being transported to the refinery in Mombasa for storage, and so far the results have been positive. Talo Oil expects comprehensive results from the extended injection and production testing at both Amusing and Gamia to be announced in the third quarter of 2018. End of quote. The firm says the final investment decision on the construction of the pipeline will be concluded in 2018 and 2019 respectively. Talo Oil says the upstream baseline data collection from the environmental social impact assessment has commenced and the pipeline front end engineering design contract is expected to be awarded this month. End of quote.
The government will next week conduct a national survey on the needs of the informal sector to make it more vibrant and increase its contribution to the achievement of the Big Four plan. Labour Principal Secretary Khadija Kasachon says the survey will identify opportunities for viable private-public partnerships.
The informal sector accounts for close to 80% of the country's employment. To make the sector economically viable and open it up for more investments, the government intends to carry out a national survey to ascertain various needs. The survey will also help identify and point out public-private partnership opportunities that can be pursued.
When we say that this is informal sector, it's mostly because we don't know about this sector. See how we can make it formal now that it's such an important sector in the economy of this country.
Labour peers Khadija Kasachun says youths in the informal sector should be equipped with modern market-driven skills to make the sector globally competitive. The ministry is looking to create adequate policies to govern the sector and open it up for investment, as well as put in place measures that will ensure that the sector contributes adequately to the Big Four plan.
The informal sector, as we know it, actually are in this Big Four. Because when we are talking about universal health care, how are we meeting the needs of people in the informal sector? Yet they do manufacturing. If you look at the products that come out of this sector, they fit into the formal.
Kenya is expected to scale up its annual export of skills to neighboring countries in East Africa while minimizing the annual costs of hiring skilled laborers from other countries.
You are watching Channel 1 News Hour. A quick break here. Sports news is up next.